We all know that good advice is hard to come by, and that sometimes we just shouldn't take it at all. Curiosity got the best of me, and I decided to ask random friends, my family, and even a couple celebrities to share their answers to these two questions. Number one, what is the worst or strangest advice that you have ever received in your life? And number two, what is the best piece of advice that you have ever received? So without further ado, let's see what they all had to say.
The worst piece of advice I ever got was from my dad. And I love my dad to death, but he told me that I should be a bus driver. And it's because he loves his job, he loves being a bus driver, and he thinks I would love it too. And I'm like, Dad, I love you, but I'm not going to be a bus driver in this lifetime.
I think that when I really look back on life, this is a piece of advice that I actually received from numerous people at different points in my life. And it's that you need to follow a set path to have abundance or be happy or successful, like staying with one company for a number of years and working your way up the ladder, or no matter how unhappy you may be there, or needing to own your own home because renting is like throwing your money down the drain. And I've actually adopted kind of an oppositional perspective to that type of advice, where often I have redefined what success looks like in my life from a pretty young age. And it's something that has often gone against societal norms or expectations.
Lately, I've been getting pregnancy advice, and I'm not quite sure about them. Like my mom said, "You're not listening to that heavy metal, are you? It can affect the baby's personality." And I specifically read this is not the case. There's no proof that says that classical or whatever actually improves their learning or personality. It's just recommended to have nice music. Also, like certain teas, people like drink chamomile, but I actually read that it can possibly encourage labor, so you're not supposed to. But who knows?
My dad used to say to me, if you go to the river to swim and if you get drowned, don't you dare coming back at home. Huh? It doesn't make sense. It means that if you put yourself in dangerous situations and if something happens to you, I would get so mad at you that even dying won't save you.
Best advice I have ever been given in my personal life is to be honest, but most especially the advice was to be honest with yourself. And that's a huge challenge. That was a pivotal moment in which it really required and requested for you to go within and to allow yourself to be okay to be crucified and be okay with yourself and okay to transmute, okay to grow. But taking a hard look at yourself is a challenge. I recently had to do that. So that advice is even working right now. I am 62, and 2 days ago, I went through a severe crucifixion of myself. And had to go in. But the important thing was I was willing to do it, even though I wasn't prepared to do it, because the cathartic resurrection was powerful to continue to grow me and better know me.
But I would have to go back to some years ago as being part of an annual St. Patrick's Day parade. And I was given the opportunity to ride in the back of one of these classic cars. It was like an old Chevrolet or something. And rather than sit in the seat of the car, the advice that I got was, oh, you could just hop on and sit on the very back, like the top of the back seat there. So I sat down and just locked my legs to kind of secure myself. And about a second later, the car that I'm riding in is crashed into by the next vehicle in the parade. Someone was just kind of distracted and looking at the crowd or something. So that was some pretty bad advice, to sit on the back of a convertible car in a parade, not knowing that I'd be involved in almost a serious automobile accident. So that was probably the worst advice.
Worst advice definitely was all throughout my childhood, being pressured to go and do sports when I am the most non-sporty, non-motivated to chase a ball person you could ever imagine in the whole world. And I did it way too many times. 1 or 2 times I could understand, but I kept on getting coaxed into going to baseball practices, t-ball, basketball, cross-country skiing teams, and I just suffered the entire time. I just should have been been more committed to being a theater nerd?
The weird one would definitely go towards my grandfather. We were shopping in Lanco one time when I was a little kid, and he was telling me in the middle of the store how it was very important, it was crucial that I had a good pair of underwear that had support, because I couldn't just let my boys hang. There's that one.
The best piece of advice that I ever got was from an old friend named Aaron Dowdy, and he said, Roy, just be yourself. It's okay to be yourself. And at that time I was struggling with, I was trying to be who others wanted me to be, right? That way I would be validated or received with love. And that small sentence that he told me really shifted something within me, because now that's all I want to be.
So the strangest advice that I ever got, or at least that I could think of, was when I was a kid, my grandmother told me, never show anyone your belly button. Because I guess I had showed someone my belly button, and apparently that was off limits for girls.
This is the worst advice I had ever received in my life, and it goes like this. Hey, buy a house. It's a great investment. No, I had a shitty house for 14 years and it kept falling apart, you know, like that crappy car you get, and you're like, do I get rid of it or I keep putting money into it? Well, guess what I did? And after 14 years, I sold it. Now, when my parents bought their house in 1975 and my mom sold it in 2002, she made $220,000. I sold my house after 14 years, and I had to bring money to the table. I lost $2,000. So thank you so much for that investment.
What's the best piece of advice I've ever received? That'll go to my dad telling me, I was 38, vacationing. He turned to me and said, Roxanne, go find a man so you're not lonely in your old age, and go buy property. I thought, oh gosh, all right, I'll try. He never said anything like that to me before. You know, I'd been wanting a boyfriend, but it wasn't a priority. So I got on a dating app, I got a realtor, and I actually found both of them within a 3-month period, which is quite crazy. He said that in September to me, and then by October I found Chris, who now I'm married to. We're expecting a child, and a realtor helped me find a condo. Woo.
So the worst piece of advice I've ever gotten was to pursue a job that was probably going to pay a lot more money than the job I had at the time, but was notorious for being an incredibly stressful, cutthroat job where you shouldn't expect to have any support from your peers.
I've been fortunate to receive a lot of really good advice over the years, but I probably have to say from my professional life, the best advice I ever received probably came from my wife. It was early on in our marriage, and I had hinted that I wanted to pursue doing something in broadcasting, television, media. I wanted to do something. And my wife gave me some really good advice. She said, look, 20 years, 10 years, 20 years are going to go by. You could either pursue this and make it happen or not pursue it and miss the opportunity. But either way, 20 years or whatever the time is, it's going to go by. So you could either do it or either not do it. So I guess the advice from her that I would pass along to anybody is if you have a passion for something, if there's something you want to pursue, hey, the time is going to go by either way. So make it happen. Get out there and do it.
My brother said to me when I was on about my 4th or 5th major trying to go to school, he's just like, Meek, just pick something and stick to it. See it through, finish it out, and just stop switching majors. Because I was just bouncing all over the place. And I finally did. I ended up with my mortuary science degree. I totally don't do that anymore, but I finished it. And it brought me places that I never would have imagined. I learned so much. But it started out with having to finish that.
The best piece of advice that I've ever received, and I'd say this is something I'm still working on, it's a lifelong practice, but that piece of advice is to learn how to be committed without being attached. And this is something that, you know, I've learned I can be really passionate and dedicated to something or someone while also practicing how not to become attached to the outcome or to the individual.
My preschool teacher, Mrs. Lucas, used to sing a song, and it was called Have Patience. Can't remember the tune, the melody, but all throughout my age and growing up, my grandmother would always tell me to have patience, and she would kind of sing that song even though she had no idea how it went. It was a way throughout my life that kind of like got my head level whenever I was angry or feeling a little overwhelmed with stuff. So even though she's gone, even to this day, I still play that in the back of my mind when I'm starting to feel stressed out or something, and it still helps out.
Now, a good piece of advice. A friend of mine used to say that to me a lot. When you want to start something new, be aware of whom do you have next to you. They have to be positive people.
And I do have one other best piece of advice that I wanted to stick in there really quick. From working in restaurants basically my whole life, and this is pretty universal in the service industry, you're only in the weeds if you care. And as somebody that cares about everything way too much, you're only in the weeds if you care, which you can apply to just about any part of your life. So that was very helpful to me.
Greatest advice I ever received was this. After college, I wasn't sure what to do. I was working in a hotel, substitute teacher, all that stuff, no sleep. I had hair back then and all that crap. And I wasn't sure what to do, so I wanted to take this writing class because I loved writing. Even though I had a degree in history, I always loved writing. I wanted to be a writer. So I wanted to take this writing class at a local university and couldn't get in. Class was full. So I had to speak to the person teaching that class. It was the chair of the department. And he looked at my transcripts and he said, "Bill, you're not well read." He said, "I want you to take my class on Fitzgerald and Hemingway instead." And I was like, "Ugh, no, I don't want to do that, man. I don't want to read and all of that." And he talked me into it, so I was like, okay. So I take this class. My entire life changed. Not only did I gain a greater appreciation for literature, I learned how to become a better writer. That class inspired me to stop what I was doing and go to grad school, where I did earn a master's in English, and later on I got another MA in creative writing and an MFA in creative writing. I ended up teaching for 12 years. I was in marketing. I'm still doing writing to earn a living, and it's changed my entire life.
The best piece of advice I've gotten is a lot broader than the worst piece, but it's meant a lot to me because it's kind of laid the groundwork for a lot of communication improvement that I've had with my friends and family over the years. And that is, if you're talking to someone, if you're trying to be honest with them about how they've made you feel, if you're trying to solve a problem, ask yourself, is what I'm saying helpful?
The best advice I ever received was from one of my acupuncture patients many years ago. She was on the table, I was treating her, and we were talking, and she said, "Jen, never postpone joy." And I still think of that to this day, and I said, you know, that is really profound advice. Never postpone joy. I never forgot that.